for him to become the new head coach at Stamford Bridge. That's happened this morning, as I mentioned to you about half an hour or so ago. Talks have continued from early this morning between representatives and senior executives at Chelsea to try and finalise some of the contractual details. And now that everything has been agreed, it's just a matter to sign that contract. There are still one or two legal details that need to be addressed and issues to be discussed around his backroom staff. But as I say, big breaking news, has now agreed verbally to become Chelsea's new manager, and things expected to move pretty quickly from here. We've been saying all morning on Sky Sports News, haven't we, that we expect him to be confirmed as the new Chelsea manager within the next 24 hours. Things are moving faster than that now. Verbal agreement in place. Still legal and contractual issues to sort out. Now, look, we need to say that there are still, those are quite complicated. You know, if you appoint a big contract, we expect it to be a long-term contract, by the way, then the legal issues around that, the contractual issues, are going to take some time. There's a lot of minute detail that they've got to go through. And this has all happened so quickly. Remember, it was almost exactly 24 hours ago, 10 o'clock yesterday morning, when Chelsea announced that they had sacked. So things have progressed very, very quickly to this point. He hasn't signed the deal yet, but that's only a matter of time. He now has a verbal agreement with Chelsea to become their new head coach. I should just mention as well, we told you about 45 minutes ago on Sky Sports News that Chelsea hold an interest in the sport team. They've got verbal agreement to get him. It's now down to the final contractual details to be signed before they can announce it publicly.
He's a good manager. I just wonder, you know, he had the Scott Parker situation where he criticised the owners, the transfer policy, the players a little bit. He's done that once or twice already this season. Clearly, Todd Bowley has thought, right, enough's enough. We need somebody else in. But I guess who comes in next? The name that obviously immediately springs to mind is he's taken responsibility for the games. But he said, you know, we can't play like this. We're not aggressive enough. We're not high tempo. We haven't worked hard enough. Performances aren't good enough. Clearly, I think we could all see that something wasn't quite right. But like I just said before the news broke, I think we all assumed that was a little bit of a hangover from last season and what had happened and happened obviously with the ownership of the football club. Signings then coming in, Todd Bowley taking the reins as not only owner but chief exec, chief scout, chief of recruitment, chief of everything effectively. That hasn't gone as smoothly as maybe some thought it should do this season. I thought he would be given a little bit more time, but clearly they've decided to make a change very, very quickly, which is a huge shock, is a huge surprise. But I guess now it's who comes in next and how quickly can they get that person in. These teams, you know, they are about working hard, desire, and that's what fans want to see. Fans will always accept mistakes, they will always accept technical deficiencies, but they won't accept lack of hard work and lack of desire. And when a manager starts to question that, you start thinking, well, are the players playing for the manager? Maybe they weren't in this instance. Maybe there's something else that's gone on that we don't know about that may come out sooner rather than later. We find out a little bit more. But yeah, really surprised to hear that news this morning.
To Zinedine Zidane as well. His odds are quite short on this. You throw a Brendan Rodgers' name into this too, but we believe Zidane names at the top of Chelsea's list. What do you think about that?
Their new head coach. I've been told that Chelsea have been very impressed by the breadth and depth of his knowledge about their squad in talks with his representatives. They've also been impressed with his single-minded focus on the way Chelsea want to play and also his desire for the job. One thing that's really stood out in talks with his representatives has been his obsession with possession and positional play.
They wanted to give him time, a chance to make it work. Why do you think that stance has now changed?
Well, I don't think everybody at the club wanted to give him more time. I think Todd Bowley was his biggest supporter. He was instrumental in appointing, and he's the one who's really been backing him and keeping him in his job for such a long time. I know there have been lots of other senior people at Chelsea who wanted to make the change a lot earlier, but ultimately they weren't able to make that decision up until yesterday. And if you look at their form, it just simply has not been good enough, and results haven't been good enough for a Chelsea manager. You know, under Chelsea's previous owner, Roman Abramovich, he probably would have been sacked 3 or 4 times. You know, Chelsea have a history of changing managers very, very quickly when results are not going well, and has had 7 months at Chelsea, and results have just not been good enough. I mean, if you look at it this year, I think from the beginning of January up until in 11 games, then they had a couple of wins against Leeds, Dortmund and Leicester before the international break. But then they drew at home against Everton, and then that performance yesterday, you know, they just haven't been playing well. They haven't been scoring goals. And unless they win the Champions League, they're going to miss out on the Champions League next season. And obviously that is a massive, massive consideration for Chelsea's American owners.
Look, I think the leading candidates at the moment in alphabetical order are Thomas Frank, the Brentford manager, also Kieran McKenna, the Ipswich Town manager. Now, the reason Chelsea are going for those 3 men is because they believe that all 3 of them have the attributes that they are looking for. Let's start off, for instance, with McKenna. Why do they like McKenna? Simply because of the fact he's done such a great job at Ipswich, and also because he's got a lot of experience as a coach in the Premier League, working at Manchester United under managers like Jose Mourinho, and also at Tottenham as well. Now, Thomas Frank, a lot of senior people at Chelsea have been very impressed with the job that he has done at Brentford, brought them into the Premier League, has established them as a Premier League side on a smaller budget than a lot of his rivals. And also his personality, the way he carries himself, the fact that he's such a good communicator, and he's more adaptable when it comes to style of play. He's not as dogmatic as somebody like Enzo Maresca. Because I've been told today that there is a high-profile mystery name that Chelsea are interested in as well. Obviously, I've been trying to do my best to find out who this mystery name is. I have not made much progress so far, but I do also know that Chelsea have been interested in a few other names as well. It's not a massive pool, but the other names that they've been interested in include people like Sebastian Hoeneß, the Stuttgart manager, and also Roberto De Zerbi, who has just left Brighton. Now,
First, Chelsea head coach Enzo Maresca has defended